What you're about to watch is a live TV series produced by artists and distributed over the internet. It is performed live in an art space, which is now transformed into a functioning TV studio. This is a series in which groups of artists work together to produce TV. Over the next 3 weeks, you will be watching television broadcast over the internet. You are watching live now with me here in the space of a TV studio, talking directly to you. This is an experiment in communication and distribution. What can television be? A frame, a box, a set of parameters, a space to ask questions, a space for the unexpected. We are doing this because we want to reach out to a wider audience in a group production. Collaboration, what does that mean? I want to work collectively.
Confrontation, something wild, the unanticipated, without being controlled and with the opportunity for silences. I find silences sometimes very interesting. It is not allowed on television. On television, everything has to be kept moving.
So it's going to start with something to do with public space, the creation of a space. The space could be the sculpture down the road by Tesco, public space, or a network, like a rhizome. I'm thinking music, a narrator. I'm thinking objects, choreographed cameras. I'm thinking headshots. I'm thinking big or go home, to the limit, engaging, outreaching, reflexive, self-othering.
Group work? What group work? Collective authorship is for people who don't have ideas. They're reproducing the conditions for the production of artwork. Reflecting on contradictions is the middle-class, secular version of saying grace. Solidarity, not empathy. Anger, not depression. Care without community. I produce myself in the highest quality. I can do this in 1 week, by tomorrow, in 5 minutes. Just email me.
We have been creative problem solving for months. We aim for the highest quality. The highest quality is the only thing allowed to be produced. This is my work. This is your computer, my television, our culture, your community. Welcome to our private community. Thanks for watching our work. We make this work for you. But who are you? Who are we? Do you know who I am? Do you know who I am? Do you know what this is? Do you know what this is? Do you really know why we are here? Do you really know why we are here? Who is authoring this work? Risk. Dare to take a risk. I hate things that aren't like this. Wow, your work is so timely. My society is so timely. Wow.
Just off Green Lanes, somewhere almost lost, halfway between Manor House and Newington Green, is an island. A small patch of gently sloped paving stones with some benches, small trees and shrubbery. I've passed this place many times, in both day and night. And if you were to visit there now, it wouldn't look much busier than it does here. At first encounter, it struck me as odd. It seemed to be meant as a place for rest and recreation, or to sit with friends, but it didn't seem very inviting. Then I noticed a weathered and aging information tablet, and I read, "The new river is not new, nor is it a river." I looked, I could find no river. I thought, is this a surreal joke? And I read on, and discovered that this place was built on a 25-mile path which followed the zigzag route of a 17th century aqueduct, built to bring water from Hertfordshire to London, and covered over in the 1800s. Now when I walk by, I imagine what it must be like down there in that entombed aqueduct. A scary thought, I thought. Sometimes, when I sit on one of the benches, as with the rumble of an approaching underground train, I try to see if I can feel the tremble of the rush of water through that old tunnel, and wonder what it sounds like. Probably cold and scary, even watery. But our specially invited guest will have his sonic interpretation of what it's really like down there. just off the city road. Somewhere almost lost halfway between the old street roundabout and the Angel lies the city road basin. 3 massive gleaming monoliths stand on a raised platform. I've walked by this place many times in both day and night. And if you were to visit there now, it wouldn't be much busier than it is here. At first encounter, it struck me as odd. A combination of an air extractor and a place for ritual sacrifice. Of what? To whom? There was no information tablet anywhere, so I went online and discovered that it was built on industrial land, and although it had lain unattractive, undeveloped, and inaccessible for 50 years, it is nevertheless a remarkable, unobstructed tract of water in the center of London, and as such is a catalyst for urban renewal. It said a springboard for radical change through the design-led vision of a regeneration process master plan, and that in place of social exclusion and dereliction, the master plan proposes a vibrant residential area with a wide range of public facilities. This new civic space, which creates access to the waterway, would be an example. Now, when I pass by, I look at the monoliths and wonder what sounds they would make. I think perhaps a babbling, talkative sound, but our guest musician would have his own ideas about that. Considering we are in a space constructed and framed by a group of artists working collectively, is this project a collaboration, or are we instead cooperating with each other?
Shall I say that thing about the gun? Yeah, so when I hear the word cooperate, I think about being held at gunpoint. It's a similar scenario where you might hear that word. You will cooperate, sort of thing. I mean, a camera is a bit like a barrel of a gun, like you're looking down it and it's looking back at you.
That's funny because when we were talking about this earlier, someone brought up the idea of collaboration with the Nazis.
I think in that case it's probably really important to distinguish what is collaboration from what is cooperation in the question. I think it's too easy for us to call any sort of cooperation between different groups of artists a collaboration, whereas in reality there's a lot more sort of power games going on. I don't think it's quite as simple as saying that just because you're working with someone and you're pitching in a few ideas, you're necessarily an equal collaborative partner in that enterprise.
Yeah, definitely. I think that obviously, I think collaboration implies shared authorship more so than cooperation, which appears to be, sort of like working together underneath something. I think that you're right that power is a fairly important question.
I think a successful artist's collaboration is about generosity and about furthering ideas and opening up ideas in ways that they couldn't be opened up by a single author. I think it's about losing egos.
Or maybe it's as easy as having a good conversation where you have to respond to what someone said. And then...
How does that work in this context?
Well, that's kind of what I was thinking about. The more we have this conversation, each time it's different. The only way it works is if you respond to what's happening.
But of course, it's also important to remember that collaboration and cooperation are also, there's strategies more than there are values. So there's no kind of essential kind of identity to collaboration or cooperation. They're just ways of reaching a shared goal, perhaps, or a stated goal. But I suppose that also, you could potentially ask the question, can cooperation or even collaboration be choreographed?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I mean, in the sense that we've had this conversation or various permutations of it, several times today, and maybe beforehand too.
I kind of think that's because in some ways you like you're saying it's a strategy. In reality, you can't. It's only as good as what actually comes out of it, and you can't just like fetishize it as a form of doing something, and just because something's really trendy, and it becomes like on trend, and loads of people are starting to do it, doesn't necessarily, there's not necessarily value of what comes out of that. Like some artists, like in this conversation we were having yesterday, some artists were saying that actually like they think it's completely overvalued as like a form of organising stuff because they can't get anything out of it. So I think that it needs to be separated as a form.
Do you not agree?
I don't agree with that statement that it needs to be separated out, and I think that part of the discussion that was being had is something that I find really difficult to relate to, the sort of the loss of self in collaboration. I think is something I find tricky to get my head around.
Would one imply a loss of self more than the other? I mean, collaboration or cooperation? I mean, cooperation implies negotiation, therefore perhaps more retaining the self, if that makes sense.
I like the sort of amorphous shape of collaboration. I like it when it's unclear.
Unclear that it was collaboration.
Unclear what it is at all.
Who's putting what bits in?
Maybe.
It's just like a soup of ideas.
I like it when it's just changeable at all times. there's no necessarily bounds to collaboration when it's successful, and the rules can be changed all the time.
I was wondering if maybe you can make an analogy between artist collaboration and group sex. In the way that, like, if it's just one-on-one, then you're still thinking about each other, but then in the group scenario, you're thinking about everybody, because there's lots of things happening around you at the same time.
Do you get performance anxiety?
Maybe
devolves from that.
Maybe team sex would be better than group sex.
Yeah.
It can work as an analogy, because what I was thinking about is that when it comes to collaboration, where you yield a different result than what you had individually ever thought of yourself going into the project, you know, it takes on a life of its own. You do have to kind of constantly check in with yourself and make sure you're still getting something out of it, be it, you know, giving over your hands, tools, and mind for greater good, or maybe holding on to some aspects of your own art practice that you feel can serve the project, learning new things for you. You know, you see where in that gray scale you're personally willing to go. Sometimes it feels more like a cooperation, other times it becomes more like a collaboration, but there's so much gray area in the middle.
Yeah, and I think another thing is that after a certain point it becomes very difficult to talk about something like this, you know, completely in the abstract, because obviously we're talking about this in the context of, you know, a very specific medium, which is, you know, live TV and stuff like that. And so, I mean, these aspects must surely sort of, like, you know, have their own sort of resonances. I mean, obviously, like in this case, you know, you'll have, you know, like runners and boom operators. I mean, what they contribute in that context will be different to what they contribute in, say, a different context or something.
Thank you very much, everyone. Just off the Old Kent Road at Burgess Park, almost lost somewhere halfway between Elephant and Castle and New Cross, a shiny metallic tower stands right in the middle of the pavement. I've passed by it many times in both day and night, and if you visit it now, it won't look much busier than it does here. At first encounter, it struck me as odd. It looked like a symbolic landmark, but symbolic of what? Looking like a combination weather vane and orrery, you know, one of those clockwork models that reflect the movement of the planets. It seemed that this hybrid machine divined both the wind and the cosmos. What then? Does the wind follow the movement of the planets? Does this weird contraption represent an argument against modern science? Step closer. And this strange pyramid becomes even stranger, for you will see yourself inside it, as if trapped, looking out. Look down, and it balances on the castings of 3 large seashells. Why does it rest on the armor of sea creatures? What's inside the shells? What are those strange constellations at the top? Where do those arrows point? Who built this, and why? Now, when I pass by, I think of it as a bridge between the wonders of our watery deep and the mysteries of the universe. A starship into which one's reflected self enters and departs this world. I wonder what the journey would be like. Scary? Exciting? Probably cold.